It's so lame. It's so lame to be like, I just had so much on my mind when I was 14 living in the suburbs, but I really felt like I did.
Hey everybody, this is the first initial podcast of Flex Your Head, where I'm gonna go deep into the artistic workings of your favorite musicians or artists and try to find out what makes them tick, what motivates them. As a fan of music, as a fan of art in general, I know that what I really enjoy is hearing backstories of songs or figuring out how somebody was raised or where they come from that motivates them to do what they do. So with this podcast, that's kind of the intent, is to go deeper maybe than your average podcast or your average interview. So hopefully you learned something, hopefully you enjoy it. This is the first episode of Flex Your Head. I'm honored to have my friend and a great vocalist and writer, Keith Buckley, on the show.
Thanks, Jesse. What a pleasure.
Known you 17 years.
Have you ever known me to wear a shirt like this?
No, but it's quite nice.
I actually said to myself today before leaving, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what I wear, I'm just doing a podcast.
And then we sprung the cameras on you.
Yep, looking like I'm on a Caribbean cruise.
So how you been, man? How's tour?
Good, it's great. It's great, we're playing a boat tonight.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
It's pretty pimp.
It's gonna be sweet. I've never played on a boat before. I've definitely drank on little boats.
Yeah.
But this will be a whole different thing, so we'll see how it goes.
So I guess with this, I'm sort of experimenting with the format, but I really want to sort of get into your head and sort of figure out who you are, you know?
Boy. Me too.
You know, us being friends and acquaintances for years, but, and just sort of from the periphery, reading interviews and being a fan of your music and, one of the few hardcore metal bands I've consistently listened to and enjoyed.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's true. I guess maybe we can start from the beginning. Growing up in Buffalo as a kid with your family, where would you find your first sort of artistic influences? Where was that moment in your life where you started thinking about deeper things?
It was watching a Pearl Jam video.
Really?
Yeah.
Which one?
Jeremy, I think, was the first time that I realized that I wanted to be a vocalist. And that, I'd always been into music, and my dad, played guitar, and we had records around the house, and I didn't know this at the time. They told me this many years later, but they would put James Taylor records on and then give me headphones, and I didn't know that they couldn't hear me singing. Like, I thought I was just singing along.
That's great.
So I would be listening to James Taylor records and singing like at the top of my voice because I thought that they heard the music as loudly as I did, and they just used to laugh at me while I did that.
Does James Taylor still hit you in a certain way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Any song in particular?
Fire and Rain is still pretty touching, but
I was also that child. With James Taylor.
Yeah, he's and his story's so awesome too, because like he was like a heroin junkie, and he was just out of his mind, and then he just one day became like the kindly grandfather of the folk rock scene, and he's just the most gentle dude. And I don't know.
So do you think it was the storytelling in that?
Yeah, it was definitely the storytelling, absolutely. And I think that from James Taylor, and then it was Simon and Garfunkel, and I still will say that Paul Simon is like my favorite lyricist of all time. So those sort of folk storytelling lyrics. I'm
interested to go back to the Pearl Jam though. Was it the video itself too? Did that sort of strike you?
Yeah, it was the visual aspect of it too, because I think Pearl Jam 10 was one of the first like alternative rock CDs I ever got. So I understood that there was like this insane energy that I hadn't necessarily been used to growing up listening to James Taylor, like Simon and Garfunkel and the Beatles, and hearing that and then seeing that it was something that was taken very seriously. I mean, that was a very serious, moving video. And I remember sort of the disparity between what I thought the song felt like and what it looked like when you put action to the lyrics. So I was like, well, there's this entire world of meaning and fluidity between image and words, and that was it. I kind of just fell in love with that. So.
Did you latch on at all to the character Jeremy as sympathetic or empathetic?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Could you relate to that character at all?
Maybe I did. I don't know. There was just something about it. Yeah, I mean, it was a kid in school. I was like, well, I'm a kid in school. And yeah, I guess I feel a little weird, but my parents are still married, grew up in the suburbs, and married to a woman I met in 7th grade, so that's it's awesome. Like it's a very normal upbringing. I didn't really have anything to be mad about, but I definitely did sort of relate to an angry aspect of music, which is why I eventually found punk and hardcore.
Yeah. So from Pearl Jam, you know, was there any other bands?
Then it was kind of back cataloging. Then it was like Nirvana, and then like, obviously Nirvana was a lot more angry than Pearl Jam at times. But once I found Nirvana, then it was like oh wait, I really think that I could get into the more angry stuff, like the yelling thing. And then that was finding Minor Threat, Black Flag, you know. So I kind of went back a few steps because I kind of missed that boat. But I wasn't so far gone that I couldn't revisit it and still feel a connection to it. And then once I found that, then it was just the whole world. Everything just Pandora's box.
I have a similar
hardcore.
story. Minor Threat definitely was like the one.
Yeah, they were the one.
As soon as I heard it, I was like, I've never heard anything like this.
They were the gatekeepers. And I mean, I would listen to Minor Threat records and write lyrics that, I mean, I wasn't in a band or anything, but write lyrics that just had the same cadence of all the Minor Threat songs, so that I was just kind of plugging in my own words to like see how it could be done. And
what age was that when you were starting to experiment with that stuff?
14 maybe, so 1994 I think. Yeah.
So words and lyrics, and I know you're a big reader too at that time in your life. What literature was turning you on?
That time I was coincidentally into like beat lyrics or beat culture, and I say lyrics I guess because, you know, Allen Ginsberg influenced a lot of lyricists like Bob Dylan and things like that. So that was another thing that I was.
Ginsberg's pretty heavy for a 14-year-old. That's
yeah, but I loved it, and I don't know what I loved about it. I think it was just the spontaneity of it. But you know, it was just sort of the thing that I needed to find at that time, and I found it luckily. And so it was Ginsberg, Kerouac, Richard Brautigan was a big one for me, and then. Fast forward a few years later, and I'm in school at University of Buffalo, and I'm taking like this beat culture class, and there's a professor there named Robert Creeley who grew up in San Francisco. I think he's from Buffalo, moved to San Francisco, and was a part of that whole culture. I got to meet him, and you know, it was just like a really, you know, like I said, like kind of worlds collide sort of.
Like a polarizing moment.
Yeah. So I just felt like, I don't know, it was one of those life check marks. I was like, okay, this is like kind of where I need to be. I need to be like reading this stuff and listening to this stuff and try to find a way to like put them together if I can.
So you're identifying with counterculture at a pretty young age there.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I really don't, because like I said, I mean...
Was your father into any of that stuff? Or
yeah, he was a hippie.
Friends? Or?
Yeah, I mean, he was a hippie for sure. But... I guess so. He was like the guy, you know, took me to a Pink Floyd concert when I was like 12 or 13, and yeah, the Beatles were always a big thing. So yeah, I guess the counterculture was always something really important to me. And you know, listening to records with him and him like showing me these little secrets like the Iberry Paul stuff and telling me the story behind that, like that just seemed interesting, and I loved the idea that there was just so much more behind what was on a record. So
and that's kind of like what drives you when you discover that aspect of art. And you latch onto it, you want more of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So from there, take me to the first band, the first time you were in a room with people with a microphone in your hand, or was that your first instrument?
No, I was, I'd never played any instrument. I kind of like messed around with piano when I was younger, so I kind of had a very basic appreciation of like melodies and things like that. But the first band I was ever in, I was 14, 15 years old, and we just covered Nirvana.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was it. We just sat in my basement and just covered Nirvana songs. But it felt like, I don't know, it felt like something. It was really special. And I remember it was just me and a guitar player and a drummer. And then the drummer's like, hey, I know this bass player. I'm like, what do you need a bass player for? Just who cares? And then he came in and played the song. I'm like, oh my God, that was like the missing thing. And then I realized that there was, you know, all these layers to it and things that can get expounded on. And yeah, then that was it. So as much as I love the simplicity of early punk and hardcore, I think that eventually, of like the more is more thing, eventually kind of drove me to find like more complicated stuff and get into the real like inner workings of a major band. You know, there was like 9 Inch Nails, I guess, was probably a weird diversion from what I was doing and listening to, but for some reason 9 Inch Nails was just
but
like,
lyrically, I mean, that's some brilliant stuff.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, absolutely.
I even, you know, we'll go back and re-listen to early 9 Inch Nails now, and it's like, what was that guy thinking at the time?
I know.
Just comes from another planet.
Yeah, I loved everything about him. He was like when I was younger, he was like the rock star. You know what I mean? He was my like David Bowie.
And his videos, man.
Everything about him. Oof. Everything he did. it was
I've never seen
incredible.
Head Like a Hole, and he's, all tied up upside down. And
Yeah.
I can still see it in my head. It's so,
Yep.
life-changing.
Everything he did was insane.
So from your first sort of jammy band where you didn't, I assume you didn't play shows with that band. It was just kind of
We did.
You did?
We did. We wrote some songs. We put out a demo.
Awesome.
Not going to tell you the
What
name.
were they
of it.
named?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell anybody. But we played some shows. We wrote some songs, and then it was just sort of like I just fell in love with them. Like, I have to be a singer somehow.
So did you find yourself, you were talking about how you sort of fell for like the wanting it to be more complex or more musically, hearing the bass and that's part. Did you seek that out? Did you want to get with better musicians? Were you ambitious at that age?
Yes, yeah. So what wasn't good in hardcore at the time was singing. And I was like, well, that's unfortunate because I had kind of latched on to Bad Religion at around this time. And I'm like, he's singing, but it's a punk sound. Like that needs to be more of what, I don't want to scream all the time. I just don't. I don't like it. I'm not good at it, so I like to sing. Yeah, I like to sing. So yeah, it was a lot of Bad Religion that really, really drove me to like find people that could not just like chug, but that could write guitar parts and bass lines and slow things down and change tempos and to sort of accommodate more vocal experimentation. So that was it. Bad Religion was kind of the first one where I heard. I'm like, oh my god, he could sing over this stuff too, which is great because I loved singing. Like I said,
even Minor Threat had a bit of melody. It was yelling, but he still would hit sort of close to notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I tried to mimic that, but then I became a fan of the more screaming over melody.
Yeah.
But Bad Religion was definitely one of those bands where it's musicianship for sure.
Right. And plus the lyrics were so brilliant that, and this is way before Google. I had no idea what these words meant. I remember like taking the lyrics and going into a dictionary and putting them together and almost like sometimes rewriting his lyrics with the more basic words, you know what I mean?
Amazing.
So I could understand the music that I was singing along to. And then from there it was Rage Against the Machine, which I felt was like a perfect combination of everything I loved because it was weird because like there was an underlying thread this whole time of me listening to hip hop. Like I loved rap and hip hop.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was all the wordplay that was involved in it.
That is precisely why I love hip hop too.
Yeah.
And I think at the time that we both grew up, hip hop and hardcore were pretty close culturally.
The Judgment Night soundtrack changed the music paradigm for me forever.
Yeah.
That merging of rap and rock, it was the perfect thing.
And vocal placement, I think, was really unique with hip hop, where that even inspired me at an early age. I wasn't rapping in early Killswitch, but the way I placed the voice was because of hip hop.
Absolutely. Not to like be a shameless promoter, but like our song "No Son of Mine," I like that song because it's almost a rap song for me.
Yeah.
Like the vocal cadence and delivery is almost a rap song, and I'm like it's so heavily influenced by like the way that I listen to like lyricists do their cadences. So Rage Against the Machine because it had hip hop, it was angry, and it was smart, and I was like, this is it. This is the culmination of everything I want in a band, and it's Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah,
so
Zach was Inside Out, the band before Leach, was probably one of the bigger ones for me, No Spiritual Surrender.
Yeah.
And him talking about those, I'll never just be another pebble on the beach. Like writing that in a hardcore song.
Right.
Which led me to, and getting to the sort of guts of this talk is through those words, through the language. How did you feel like you wanted to use language? Was there a purpose for it? Did you, your lyrics are very poetic.
Thank you.
But at a young age, did you feel like you were politically minded? You just wanted to talk about social injustice?
I definitely was not politically minded. I was just more, I was a very emotional child. A lot of chemical imbalances led me to be a very emotional child. So there was just a lot of like personal and it's so lame. It's so lame to be like, I just had so much on my mind when I was 14 living in the suburbs, but I really felt like I did.
Yeah.
Like I really felt like I had things to say, And
music is a way to sort of vent that so you don't go crazy.
Yeah. And I didn't expect any of it to ever really ring true with anybody else, but writing to me was like the best thing I could have ever done to feel, a way I wanted to feel. So
aside from music, I know you. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
It's Did you know at a young age you were going to be a writer no matter what, music or not?
I really feel like early on I wanted to be a writer first because I knew that it was something I could do and get out into the world without ever having to like show my face. Like I didn't want to be recognizable. I just wanted to work and I wanted to write. But unfortunately, like you have to, I couldn't really have my cake and eat it too when I was that young.
It's the necessary evil.
Yeah. But there's still a big part of me that feels that way. Like I want people to read my stuff and listen to my stuff. I don't need to be seen, but I guess I do to kind of keep the band going.
Isn't that such a
but it makes
dichotomy?
me uncomfortable. Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the beauty of being on stage, though. Like, I remember we did our first tour with you guys. I remember watching you perform, and you just seemed like such a natural. Thanks. And your sense of humor was always intact. I was actually a bit jealous in the early days watching you perform because I was like, I don't have that. I don't have that. And I wanted it, but your humor, were you like a class clown? Was humor always a part of who you were?
No, I was never a class clown, but it was definitely a part of who I was. And I definitely thank my parents for that too, because I was brought up on like Monty Python,
yes,
which is weird because it was so dry and almost self-deprecating and strange. So that was like my first my foray into comedy, was this really dry, weird stuff. And then I kind of fell into it accidentally when I realized that, like, okay, if I'm gonna stand up on stage and I don't want to be here, and I'm afraid of what people are going to say about me, I'm going to disarm them by making fun of myself first.
I like that.
So it was, that's always how I would do it. It was just like, be as self-deprecating as possible, right off rip, then there's nothing they can do that will bother me.
Wow. So do you think it was a self-defense?
Oh, absolutely it was. It still is. I mean, I only talk on stage when I'm really nervous, which sounds like something you don't want to do, but when I'm super nervous, I talk, because I know that it's a way to kind of disarm a lot of people.
Wow.
So.
Interesting. I like that. But it's funny you mentioned Monty Python. I think that makes total sense. It was something I was raised with too, my dad being a scholar and someone who was very well learned.
Yeah.
And it comes from very intelligent people.
Yeah.
So that particular humor is steeped in knowledge.
Absolutely it is, yeah.
Which I think makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because as I get older, rewatching some of that stuff, it's still, as a kid it was funny because it was goofy, but now as you get older you sort of see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And they're poking fun at their entire culture.
Absolutely.
Which I think is brilliant.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's just very self-deprecating. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there was definitely the Beavis and Butthead years and the Ren and Stimpy years, but even now, like, you watch stuff like Rick and Morty and it's so cerebral that and the fact that people appreciate it, and a show like that does as well as it does is really speaking a lot for like people's value on information and knowledge, and just, I don't know, I feel like a long time ago, if you were smart, you had to hide it in things. You had to be subtly smart and just to get it kind of past the gates. But now you can just be like, listen, this is going to be an insanely smart show or band or whatever, movie, and people will gravitate towards it, which is,
I think it's the beauty, the beauty of information, whether through the internet. It can be used for good and for bad, but for me, I am constantly on the internet searching and researching and watching documentaries and using that as a tool to understand a younger generation, society as a whole.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to keep up.
It is hard, but it's also something you got to be careful of as an emotional person. There's a lot of really terrible stuff out there, too.
It's so bad. But it is really good too. There's a lot of things that I've.
Well, on Twitter, you have a way of just putting it out there quickly and hysterically.
Yeah, but I don't know. I like that because I don't know. I like the brevity of it, and I enjoy the fact that I feel like if people can be concise, especially in a world that's just saturated with, I don't know, opulence and just like I said, like the more stuff. But now it's coming from so many different angles that it's hard not to be influenced by a million different things. So I think that if you can sort of, I don't know, condense yourself and your ideas into a concise little quip online, that's just what I sort of relate to better than reading like a proclamation of identity by a new artist that releases a press statement that's like 8 pages long. Like, dude, just give me the bullet points. There's so much other shit I gotta do.
Give me the footnotes.
Yeah.
All right, so going back to music, Every Time I Die, when was that a thought? When did that, now was it initially you and Jordan?
Yeah, it was me and Jordan. I was at school in Virginia Tech, and bands were coming through there, and I was going for political science.
This is what, mid-90s,
This
late
is
90s?
like 99, I think, 2000.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm at Virginia Tech for political science, and all these bands are coming through town because there was a venue there, and like Turmoil came through, and
nice.
400 Years came through, and I was going to the shows, and I'm like, Jesus, I can't let this go. I can't get in this political science realm and pretend like I don't have time for hardcore, because that's what my passion is. So at the time I didn't notice it, but I think now it was very serendipitous that I got kind of kicked out of that college, and I was like, all right, I'm coming home and starting a band.
Kind of kicked out?
Kind of kicked out. It was essentially like, you can stay, but we're gonna make your life hell. It'll be better off for you to leave.
What were you, so political science to do what?
I want to be a lawyer.
A lawyer?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I was angry and I liked arguing. So I felt like that was
brilliant.
All right, there we go. That's the next logical step. If I'm upset and I like arguing, let's try to get paid for it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you got sort of kicked out of Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Returned home to Buffalo.
Yeah. And
you just knew this is what you got to do.
Yeah. So probably within the first week, I talked to Jordan. I'm like, let's start a band. We know enough people. He was like, all right. And then it was just kind of practicing in our drummer at the time, his basement. And I swear, I don't know why we kept doing it. It was just like, we were just on that track, and that was it. It was like me, Jordan, Andy, and our drummer at the time, Mike, didn't want anything else. We would not take no for an answer. I mean, played a million horrible shows.
Yeah.
Nobody cared. We just kept practicing, just kept writing, just kept playing. And then by the time things are going well enough where we can be like, okay, what do we want to do? All right, I'm gonna not go to this next level of college. Jordan dropped out of college. Like, we gotta make the band happen. Just how it is. Yeah, it felt like a calling. Like, you can't deny something like that.
Yeah.
So
I can completely relate to that.
Yeah, I think most musicians can, and I think that's one of the advantages that this world has over other avenues of art, is that there's a real clear voice when you decide to devote your life to music. There's just, you can't deny it, and you hear things on the radio and you hear records, and you know that you're like missing that. Like, that's your world, that's where you belong, and so you gotta answer that call.
I even feel like when I'm off tour and I'm watching my friends play shows over in Europe, I'm like, oh, I want to be there too.
Oh my God, I mean, I have like, I'm like Al Bundy. Like, he like talks about his football career all the time. When I'm not on tour, I'm just like, I'm having dreams about being on stage, like being on tour. I mean, you can't, it's like saying that you don't want to be in music is like saying you don't want to be a 37-year-old male. Like, you don't have a choice. That's what it is. That's what you've been given. Do it.
So when you guys started, was there any particular bands that you were sort of looking at going, we want to sort of be like, I mean, not even just aping them to try to sound like them, but was there any band in particular that you guys saw and you were like, they're doing it the way we kind of
Deftones was that band for me, for sure.
Right on.
But I also remember when we were recording Hot Damn, which was like our first like real introduction to a recording process, where it was like there's a producer now, and he's
that next level.
Like, I mean, when we did Last Night in Town with Adam, he was awesome, but he didn't tell us to rewrite our songs. He just wanted to make our songs sound as good as possible.
Yeah.
But when we got in the studio with Eric Rachel for Hot Damn, it was like, okay, you got to rewrite this part. Like, what? About? So I feel like that was a really important moment, and I remember the Used record came out, like that big first one. I can't remember the name of it. Taste of Ink, maybe, was the name of it. And I remember hearing it, and I'm like, oh no, this is what a real band sounds like. And I like called Carl Severson, who was running Ferret at the time, and I'm like, dude, I don't know, like I can't be in a studio making music when there's bands like this out here. Like, I'm so ill prepared for this.
Wow,
jump
so
into the
you
world.
Already on that. That's incredible.
I mean, because Bert was singing and the riffs were heavy and he was screaming. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's got it all, And it was like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
So with singing, do you think that's something you've always incorporated it here and there? But is that something you're still? Do you wish you could stop screaming?
Yes. Yeah.
Why not do it? Do you think it's just expectations?
No, I think it's because I genuinely feel like there are things that can't be conveyed in a pleasant voice.
Yeah,
you know.
I completely agree
and I
with
mean,
that.
we're in this world where there's this urgency and there's this purpose and, you know, there's meaning, and you can't gently sing about, you know, things that are important to you.
Get people's attention.
Yeah, right. I
like
mean,
that.
I do. Screaming hurts. I'm not gonna lie. It hurts now. It hurts my voice. It's something that, like, I just feel like can I muster up the strength to do that all the time? I'm not that angry anymore, but when I do write, yeah, there are just parts that need to be screamed. And this last record that we were doing, Low Teens, I wrote a song 2 summers, and after we recorded it, the producer, Will, was like, is this the first song without screaming in it? And I didn't even realize there wasn't screaming in it. I just wrote because that's what I was writing. So I do genuinely feel like if I'm screaming something, it's because that's how it has to
So you're just writing according to what you're hearing, what you think fits for the song.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not going to shoehorn in a part just because I want to sing, or shoehorn in a part because I want to scream because of expectations. I really feel like I'm just this. The songs write themselves kind of through me. So
speaking of that record, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the first record where you really put yourself in there lyrically.
Yeah. It was the first. And looking back, it was the first time I didn't make a joke in a lyric. You know what I mean? I didn't.
Your song titles are infamous.
And I just didn't have a sense of humor that record cycle. There was a lot of shit going on, and it was just a very serious record. But I was very much out there.
So that time in your life, you know, publicly, it's difficulty with pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Was there anything else? Your sister. As well.
Yeah.
What's the time frame is that all pretty close together?
It was within a year, 2 years. Like, Susanna was born in November, and then my sister passed away this January, but she was already on a very steady decline health-wise, and it was just sort of something that we had to acknowledge. She was born with a condition called Rett syndrome.
Right.
Very rare, very debilitating. Like, never talked, never walked. So. Her whole life was very severe, and just trying to, you know, cope and see how my parents were dealing with, you know, sometimes good news from the doctor, sometimes bad news from the doctors, but it was always just a stasis of like, how long can we make sure that she's comfortable, sort of thing. You know, the quality of life was never going to improve. She wasn't going to one day wake up and be able to drive a car, you know what I mean? Right. So it was just like, how long can we keep her comfortable and happy until it dips off one day or dips off for a week. And so towards the end, it was very obvious that, you know, it was coming to an end. The people with Rett don't typically live past 35. I think she made it to 35. So, yeah. But you know, I'd be lying if I said it surprised me. Obviously, it's just something you kind of prepare for. You know, maybe that was a source of anger, you know, when I was younger. Could have been. But it was just something that, it was just a part of my life, and it was just something I had to accept, and my parents had to accept, and Jordan had to accept. So.
Do you think that because of those events, or you in that one in particular, did you find? I mean, you were on the road. You're. I mean, we're always on the road.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself maybe getting numb or wondering if you're doing the right thing being out on the road, or did you question?
It's weird when you have a sister like that with a disability, and especially a younger sister that, you know, older brothers should feel they protect. You just kind of like, all right, well, I have to kind of live for her then. You know what I mean? Like, I have to do this stuff because she can't, and then come back and show her pictures and see if I can get a reaction out of her, sort of thing. So no, I never really felt guilty about what I did. And I mean, you know, luckily I was home. Jordan was home with our family when things started really, when we had to accept, like, okay, this is nearing the end. So luckily we were home, and she just had her memorial 2 weeks ago, I think, and we were home for that. It was a beautiful thing, so celebration, which is nice.
So on the other side of the you know, your child, I mean, tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about that, and then I guess the point I want to get to is, how does it affect who you are now as an artist, as a lyricist, and moving forward, do you feel a different sense of purpose? A different take on life, if you will.
I definitely feel a different take on life, and I don't think it's a better take, unfortunately. I think people learn a lot of stuff from experiences like that, and so long story short, Lindsay developed HELP syndrome, which is not a good thing to have when you're pregnant. I don't want to go into all the details of it, but it was very austere scenario for the baby, and I think it was like how many weeks? Like 30 weeks, and they had to just take the baby out because the baby probably wouldn't have survived any longer. So emergency situation, took the baby out 30 weeks. She lived in an incubator for 62 days in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Lindsay was on a different floor recovering from that, and then complications. Lindsay had to get moved to a different hospital. So Lindsay's in one hospital, baby's in the other hospital. Both are like just nobody's sure what the hell's going on. So I'm back and forth every day, trying to make sense of everything. It was just a period of absolute uncertainty. I knew nothing, and doctors didn't know anything for a very long time. But every day was like today could be the end of my world. Every day I woke up and
that was for 62 days?
62 days, yeah.
That's a long time.
It was a long time. So I just started writing in the hospital, just kind of waiting and writing and trying to kind of make sense of all the things, because I didn't have answers. So writing and making sense of all the things was definitely helpful for me. But so a lot of those things got incorporated into Low Teens. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it really, like, I don't know, it stole a part of me. Like, my sense of humor was gone. Like I said, it was the only record I didn't make a joke on. I didn't even think to make it. I just couldn't even think. And I still feel like I'm having a difficult time recovering from that and like getting my sense of humor back, because I just feel like I'm in a fucking dentist chair all the time. A nerve's gonna get hit. You know what I mean? And I just gotta clench and just fucking wait. Like, what is gonna fucking happen now? And I don't like feeling that way. I really don't.
Is there, you said you weren't raised with any sort of religion. Do you have any sense of God or a higher power?
Yeah, definitely a higher intelligence.
Do you find any like comfort in that, or any?
Yeah, I guess I do, because I do feel. I think that essentially people's interaction with life comes down to a basic question: is, do you think that the universe is for you or against you? So if you think it's for you, then you have to believe that everything's happening for the right reasons, and that everything that happens might seem bad now, but eventually something better will become of it, because it's all just sort of a intelligent plan that we just can't even comprehend. And I want to believe that. And I did believe that for a very long time. I was like, no, I'm just going to be safe. I'm just going to be safe no matter what I do. I'm not going to get in a van wreck. Everything's going to be safe. Like, not invincible, but just sort of like, it's not going to happen to me. And then things started happening to me, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, okay, doesn't necessarily mean that someone's out to get me, but what is the point of all of this? So, at the time in the hospital, of like, what is the point? Why couldn't this just be a normal thing? Why couldn't this be a normal birth? Why couldn't this be a normal pregnancy? Why can't we just have a beautiful child that people have balloons and cigars and everyone's celebrating? Nobody celebrated when it was a very like, oh Jesus, I hope everything's okay. That's not what you want to hear when you have a child.
People don't really know how to approach that type of a situation.
Yeah, because it's not a celebration. It's a very terrible experience.
So how much of that made it into your lyrics? How much of that?
All of it.
You talk about your how you've changed, and probably not for the better, but I'm an optimist. I can't help being an optimist.
Yeah.
And I would hope that what you've gained and what you've maybe lost and gained is gonna project you to be, because honestly, your new record really hit me hard. When I learned about everything that was going on, and I was reading your lyrics, there's some heavy shit in there.
Yeah.
And usually your lyrics are great, they're poetic, they're there's tongue-in-cheek there for sure, but I personally think you've hit a new stride, and
Thank you.
And you were able to take something that was tragic and turn it into art, and I think that's so important, and I look forward to see
Thank you.
how you develop from here on.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, I don't recommend suffering, but I definitely feel like if you have to suffer, you need to learn from it. You need to turn it into something incredible. And so for me, like I said, I feel like things happen for a reason, and it might not be a reason that you understand immediately. It might not be a reason you understand for the rest of your life. But, everything that came out of that situation was a record that I'm really proud of, and lyrics that I'm really proud of, and everyone's healthy now. And, I just think that really touching that spot that suffering touches is something that's insanely human. And like I said, I don't recommend it, but it's nothing's gonna wake you up like suffering.
Do you think you're a believer and everything happens for a reason?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, it does, just because I don't know the reason yet doesn't mean it won't eventually manifest itself. But yeah,
well, I know that I, for one, am happy you're able to take that and make it into a great piece of art.
Cool.
And I'm sure your fans feel the same way. And I think we can wrap it up with that. Thank
Awesome.
you so much for your
This
time.
was awesome.
For allowing me to like probe
Of
your
course.
head.
Of course.
And good luck with everything, man.
Thanks,
Look forward
man.
to
Appreciate
talking
it.
to you in the future, brother.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse.